We usually think it has to do with using God's name in curse words, but that's just the least of it. Taking the Lord's name in vain is way more common than you might think. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, July 27th, 2022. The third commandment is shorter than the first and second commandments, though, as I have suggested, several of the commandments have commentary attached to them to either explain why the particular commandment is important or to detail consequences of breaking the commandment. The third commandment falls into this latter category. Short commandment with a warning attached to the end of it. It says, "You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name." Well, we've all done it, and we probably do it a lot more than we think we do, taking the Lord's name in vain, that is. And we get the gist of it, but what does it really mean? As with many questions of meaning, it is important to start with first things. And the first thing here is to notice that it concerns the name of God, or in Hebrew, Yahweh. At its most fundamental level, this is a command not to use the holy name inappropriately in any way. The concern in ancient Israel, which continues to this day, was so great that Jews do not ever utter the name Yahweh, using instead a more generic term for God, such as Adonai. Well, so far so good, but this fact doesn't tell us everything we need to know. In Christian practice, it's not so much about God's actual name, but about any use of the words Lord or God that trivialize or demean the holiness and majesty of God. There's been some debate over the centuries about whether using the name God when swearing oaths, and some Christian sects to this day do not use the phrase, "So help me God," when swearing oaths, either in court or when being sworn in as public officials. But in general, the idea of using the name of God in the process of taking serious oaths has not been that seriously challenged. So where does that leave us? This is where things get a little murky and it becomes difficult to draw any bright lines that apply to each and every case. The best John Calvin could come up with, for example, was, "I have no better rule than for us so to control our oaths that they not be rash, indiscriminate, wanton, or trifling, but that they serve a just need, either to vindicate the Lord's glory or to further a brother's edification. Such is the purpose of this commandment of the law." This is not, shall we say, the clearest advice. And most of his discussion of this commandment has to do specifically with oath-taking. But Calvin uses one word in particular here that is quite helpful. He cautions against any trifling use of God's name. Now, that's something we can wrap our heads around. But instead of trying to write a rule, this is one of those instances where it is better simply to use some concrete examples. If you're someone who uses text messaging or social media, you have undoubtedly seen people use the letters OMG, as in, oh my God. I would say that the vast majority of the times when we use God's name like that, it is over trivial, trifling things. Oh my God, that was a great hamburger. On the other hand, the cry, oh my God, when we see a terrible tragedy is not so trivial. We're actually calling out to God for help. Another example. People often invoke God's name for commercial or partisan political purposes. These are the ones that really burn me up. Talk about trivializing God's name. And yet, people seem to resonate with it. It's one thing to have theologically based principles, though, that underlie our politics and to have faith-based ethics guiding our business decisions. But to use God's name to win votes or gain customers, I can think of no more clear examples of using the Lord's name in vain. Look, God is holy. Invoking God and God's name for trivial things brings God down. No wonder that this commandment made it into the 10 Commandments. It's that important. Tomorrow, the importance of keeping the Sabbath. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.